We continue now at the top of Daf Chesam and Beis and Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 8b. The Gemara here continues a statement from Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said that Rav Yehuda said to him, Rav Yehuda said as follows, Shamis minei demar Shmuel tarti, that I heard two things from Shmuel. Rachav umanig, I heard regarding Rachav umanig, Rachav meaning to say riding an animal, and manhig meaning leading an animal, and I heard that Chad Kani, that one of them is a kinyan, V'chad lo Kani, and one of them is not a kinyan, V'lo yadana, but I don't know, Hai minai, which one is which. And Rashi explains, Shamis minei demar Shmuel tarti, I heard from Shmuel two things. Shamati mimenu shnei devarim din rachav v'din manhig. I heard two things. One a halacha by riding the animal, one a halacha by leading the animal. V'chad amar li kani, one he said that it was a kinyan, or v'chad amar li lo kani, and the other one he said it's not a kinyan. V'lo yadana, but I don't know which. And the Gemara continues, Hechi dami, what exactly is the case? Ileima rachav l'chudei u'manhig l'chudei. If you say we're talking about a situation where the person is either only riding the animal or only leading the animals, there's just one individual involved. So manig l'chudei mika man damar lokani. Is there anyone that would say that if the person is leading the animal and he's the only one leading the animal, that that's not a kinyan? Of course that's a kinyan. That would be too obvious. Ela i'ikol meimar de lokani rochav u'deikol meimar. So if you're going to say that one of them is not a kinyan, it would have to be riding that is not a kinyan, and that would be obvious. And so the Gemara therefore says Ela rochav b'mokom manigi boile. Rather, the question was as follows: let's say he's riding in a situation where somebody is leading. What's the halacha? What's the halacha there? Rochav adif, is it better to be riding to a tafis because he's grabbing onto it? Or dilmer, maybe manig adif, that it's better to be the one leading, the azlam achmase, because then the animal is going because of that person who is leading. And Rashi explains, if you're going to say we're talking about a person just riding the animal, there's nobody else with him that's leading the animal together. And then let's say somebody comes from the marketplace and grabs it from this person in front of us who's riding it, he pulls it in order to make a kinyan. And you can have the same case by somebody leading the animal. Nobody's riding with him. And somebody comes and grabs it from him in front of us in order to make a kinyan. And then Shmuel says, in one of these cases it's not a kinyan, and the one who's grabbing it away is grabbing it away properly, meaning to say he's going to become the owner. And then Rav Yehuda is not sure which one of them is not a kinyan. That would not make any sense. Does anyone say that manig alone is not a kinyan? That's the equivalent of Mashicha pulling the animal. The behemoth certainly acquired of Mashicha. What would the question be for Rav Yehuda? It's so obvious what the answer is. If Shmuel said that one of them is not a kinyan, Barachav would come. It's got to be in the riding that's not a kinyan. Because it would be that Shmuel holds that you need a real Mashicha, Shatak or Yad Varegel Kedamin Bekidushin, that it uproots its hand and its foot, as we say in Meseches Kiddushin. And so the Gemara therefore said it has to be it must be you have a case of a rider and somebody leading. Shneim boim lefaneinu, meaning they're both coming in front of us. This one is riding, this one is leading. This one says it's all mine, this one says it's all mine. And Shmuel said on that Chad Kani, one of them acquires. And so Rav Yehuda asked, if you have both of these happening together, so which is better? Rachav adif, on the one hand you could say riding is better, because he's grabbing onto the animal. Maybe we only say that Mashicha works when no one's riding the animal. But we wouldn't say that in a situation where the person is riding. Or maybe the person leading is actually better because it's going because of him. That's the greater one in terms of the kinyan. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yosef says, Amar li Rav Yehuda said to me, Nichsi anon, let us see. Because we learned in the Mishnah, Hamadig sofeg esvarboim, the person who's leading the animals, this is talking about by kilayim, so the one who's leading is going to get 40 malchus. By Yoshe bekaron, and the person who's sitting in the wagon, sofeg esvarboim, he also is going to get 40 malchus. Rabbi Meir poter es hayoshe bekaron, but Rabbi Meir says the person who's sitting in the wagon, he is exempt. And on that Mishnah, umida apich Shmuel, from the fact that Shmuel actually reverses the shitas in that Mishnah, Vetani, and he teaches it as follows: V'chachamim potrin es hayoshe bekaron, that it's the chachamim who say what we just had Rabbi Meir are saying that the Chachamim say it's patur, the person who's sitting in the wagon, and so therefore, essentially, why is Shmuel reversing it? Because he's trying to say the halacha follows the Chachamim. The halacha is, again, the person sitting in the wagon is going to be patur in terms of the halachas of kilayim, of working with two animals together. Shema Amina, so what do you see from that? Rachav l'chudei, lokani. What Shmuel is saying by reversing it and saying that the Chachamim say that the person is patur, that must mean that riding alone is not a kinyan, since it's not significant as a kinyan. That's also why it's patur by kilayim. And certainly you have a situation of riding when there's also someone leading, that is certainly not going to be a kinyan. And Rashi explains, Nichsi anon, let us see, Islam lemifshat mishmaita demar Shmuel, b'hai minai wamar. We can actually learn from a different teaching of Shmuel what exactly he said. And again, the case is hamanig b'shor v'chamor. The person is leading the animals. You have a shor and a chamor. That's a problem of kilayim. So poter, the idea is that by the case of the person in the wagon, why would he be exempt? Kasavar lav midi of it. So whichever Tana says poter in that case, because that person is not really doing anything. That's why we say if it's poter by kilayim, it's also not a kinyan. Umida apech Shmuel, and from the fact that Shmuel reverses the shitas, shma minos svira l'Shmuel rochav lav midi maisa of it. You see that according to Shmuel, riding it is not considered a real maisa, it's not considered anything. Umisham diyachid v'rab halachic rab, and since when you have a minority opinion against a majority opinion, the halacha follows the majority. That's why afchol masnisin l'ukma petura k'rabbanan. That's why he reversed the Mishnah to make it that the shita that said patur was following the rabbanan, was following the majority opinion. So hachi garsinan, and the proper text says Rashi is as follows: Shma minas v'rei l'Shmuel rochav l'chudei lokani. You see that according to Shmuel, rochav alone is not going to be a kinyan. V'lo garas l'rabbanan. Rashi says you don't have to have the gears to hear the text of the rabbanan. We're focusing on Shmuel. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Abai Rav Yosef, Abai said to Rav Yosef, Hazimnin Sagi and Amrit lo Nichsi Anon. There were some times that you said over this teaching of the Nichsi Anon, of let us analyze this, V'lo Amrit lon Mishmei Rav Yehuda, but you didn't say it over in the name of Rav Yehuda. Above, Rav Yosef said it over in the name of Rav Yehuda. As Rav Yosef got older, he forgot some of his teachings. That's why Abai was asking him this question. Amar le, so he said back to him, Ivra indeed, V'dachrina nami da'amri le, and I remember also, meaning to say, Ivra means that yes, it really was said by Rav Yehuda. And I also remember the Amri Le that I said to him, Heichi Pashat Mar Rachav mi Yoshev. I said to Rav Yehuda, how are you answering the question of Rachav, of riding the animal, from Yoshev, from sitting in the wagon? It seems that you're comparing sitting in the wagon to riding the animal, but that's not comparable at all. Yoshev lo tafis b'moseira. When somebody's sitting in the wagon, he's not holding the reins, and Rachav tafis b'moseira. When somebody's riding the animal, he's holding onto the reins. So therefore, Rav Yosef said that. I actually asked Rav Yehuda, why are you bringing a proof from a case of sitting in the wagon to a case of riding the animal? The Amar Li, and then he said back to me, meaning Rav Yehuda responded to me, Rav Shmuel Damri Tarvayu, Rav and Shmuel, they both say Moseira Lokani, that holding the reins doesn't affect the kinyan, and therefore that fact would not make a difference. And the Gemara continues, Ika de Amri, there are those that say a slightly different version of this conversation between Abai and Rav Yosef. Amar le Abai le Rav Yosef, Abai said to Rav Yosef, Heichi Poshet Ma Rachav mi Yosef. How is the master answering the question of Rachav, the question of riding from again sitting in the wagon? Again, the same question, Yosef lo tafis b'moseira, sitting in the wagon, he's not holding the reins. Rachav tafis b'moseira, when he's riding, he is holding the reins. Amar le, so he said back to him, in this version he responds, Hachi Tana Idi, this is what Idi taught, Moseira Lokani, again, when it's holding the reins, that's not significant in terms of making a kinyan. And Rashi explains, Moseira in Akona, again, the reins are not significant in terms of kinyan, meaning b'mitzia, meaning if you find the lost object, ad she'olichena v'takar yad v'regel, you actually have to walk the animal that it moves its legs. V'afagav d'b'mechira kani. Now, even though when it comes to a sale, we do find such a kinyan, kedetanan, as we learn the Mishnah, behema gasa niknas b'mesira, that when you have a larger animal that can be acquired through giving over the reins, but legave mitzia, that's true in terms of selling, but in terms of finding a lost object, lo kani, that's not a kinyan, kedamrin and taima lekaman v'shmaitan, we're going to say the reason later on in the sugya. And the Gemara continues, Itmar Nami was stated as well, Amar Rav Chelbo, Amar Rav Huna, Rav Chelbo says that Rav Huna says, Moseiro mechaveiro kana, that if a person takes the reins from his friend, so then it is a good kinyan, b'mitzio v'nichse hager, but if you're talking about finding a lost object or the property of a ger, again, that's ownerless in that situation, so lo kani, so that's not going to be a kinyan. Again, that's the same distinction that Rashi just made. And the Gemara says, my lashon moseira, the Gemara explains, what's the reason for this distinction? Because what does it mean, moseira? Chaveira. Amar Rava says, Idi asabrali, Idi explained it to me, Kadam hamos or davar l'chaveira, the reins that comes from the word that a person is giving something over to his friend. And so that's why we make this distinction. Bishlama me chaveiro kani, therefore I understand why if he gets it from his friend, so it's a good kinyan. To come maser lechavri, that's the whole idea. His friend is giving him over the reins, so that can be a kinyan. Ela b'metzio v'nechse hager, but if he's taking the reins by when he finds a lost object or by the property of a ger, man kamaserle, who's giving it to him? No one's giving it to him. Delikne to vikona, so it's not going to be a kinyan. And the Gemara continues, Meisvei, we have a question from our Mishnah, Hayushnayim rochven al gave behem. Again, the Mishnah said if you have two people riding on the animal, or one is riding and one is leading, so we say Yachloku in the Mishnah. And so the Gemara says Moni, so who's the author of our Mishnah? Ilema Rabbi Meir, if you're going to say that our Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir, again Rabbi Meir saying that if you sit in the wagon, it is Kilayim, and it's also a Kinyan. So Hashta Yoshev Kani, so if sitting in a wagon is a Kinyan, Rochav mi boy, do you even need to say anything by riding? Of course that's a Kinyan. It's too obvious, the Mishnah can't be Rabbi Meir. Elalav Rabbanon, rather is it not that the Mishnah is the Rabbanon? Ushma mina rochav kani, and you see that according to the Rabbanon, even though sitting in the wagon is not a kinyan, but riding the animal is considered a kinyan. That goes against what we just said above. And the Gemara says to that, Hachav Mayaskin, and here what are we talking about in our Mishnah? It's not simply someone riding the animal, but b'manig v'raglav. He's actually leading the animal with his feet. What it means to say is he's sitting on the animal and he's kicking it, he's causing it to move the way a person would ride a horse, and so therefore that person is also like a manhig. The Gemara says, Yachi, if so, hainu manig. Well, then that is the same as manig. Why are we giving two cases? The Gemara says, Trei gavne manig. There are two different kinds of ways of leading the animal. The Mishnah is talking about both ways of leading an animal. Ma'u detema, and the chiddush of the Mishnah is, what might you have said, rochav adif? Maybe you would say the person riding is better than the person leading. To hamanig vitafis, because if someone's riding and leading while he's riding, so he's leading the animal and he's holding on, he's grabbing onto the animal. So maybe you would say that that person has the stronger kinyan, kamash malon. So that's what the Mishnah is teaching, that essentially they're equal, and we say yachloku. And Rashi says, Trei gavne manig, two kinds of leading, diashmin and b'shnei manhigim diachloku, lo hayinu yodim lahai ma'u detema. Even if we knew that two people leading, we say yachloku, but that wouldn't necessarily be true in this case of riding. Maybe you would say that the person riding who is both holding the animal and leading the animal has the advantage. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah, that there is no advantage. We still say yachloku. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof, Shnaim shayim moshkin begamal, two people are pulling a camel, umanhigan bechamor, leading a donkey. Rashi says, chamor darko behanhoga, vegamal darko b'mashicha. The donkey, the normal way is to lead it. The camel, the normal way is to pull it. In any case, two people are pulling the camel or leading the donkey. Oshaya echad moshech ve'echad manig, or one is pulling and one is leading. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tes Amud Aleph.